The last transmission. The alien fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of iron locusts, their ships blotting out the stars above the human colony of New Providence. Commander Zekthor stood on the bridge of his flagship, mandibles clicking in satisfaction as he observed the primitive settlement below. 40,000 humans lived on this backwater world, farming and mining without any significant military presence. It would be a simple harvest. His species, the Kravish Empire, had conquered 300 worlds in the past century. Humans would be number 301. Begin the descent, Zekthor ordered, his translator converting his chittering speech into something his crew could understand. Standard protocol. Destroy their communications first, then their power grid. We'll round up the survivors for processing. The first missile streaked down through New Providence's atmosphere, striking the communication towers with precision. Explosions bloomed across the colony's central hub, and Zekthor watched the data feeds confirm that no distress signal had escaped into space. Perfect. The humans would die alone, with no one coming to save them. But Zekthor didn't know about Marcus Webb. Marcus was 73 years old, a retired Navy communications officer who had settled on New Providence to spend his final years in peace. He lived alone in a small house on the colony's outskirts, surrounded by his garden and his memories. When the first explosion rattled his windows, Marcus didn't panic. He simply walked to his basement, pushed aside an old storage container, and revealed a communication system he'd built in secret over the past decade. It wasn't a standard comm unit. It was a quantum-entangled relay, connected directly to Earth's military network through principles that bypassed normal spacetime limitations. Marcus had installed it years ago, just in case. Just in case someone came for them. Just in case Earth needed to know. His hands shook as he powered up the system. Above him, he could hear more explosions, screams beginning to echo through the streets. The Kravish were landing. He had minutes at best. This is Marcus Webb, former Lieutenant Commander, Earth Navy, serial number 773 Delta Niner. He spoke into the microphone, his voice steady despite everything. New Providence colony is under attack by unknown hostiles. Estimated enemy force, 200 capital ships. They've knocked out primary communications. Civilian population 40,000. We need immediate assistance. Static crackled back at him. The connection was live, but Earth was 97 light-years away. Even with quantum entanglement carrying his voice instantly, any help would take weeks to arrive. Marcus knew this. He'd always known this. I know you can't get here in time, Marcus continued, watching his screen as it showed the enemy ships deploying ground forces throughout the colony. But I need you to know what happened here. I need you to know that we didn't go quietly. The basement door exploded inward. A Kravish warrior stood there, its exoskeleton gleaming in the dim light, weapon raised. Marcus didn't stop talking. They're insectoid, 8 feet tall, advanced energy weapons. They're rounding up civilians. Looks like they want prisoners, not corpses. Marcus's voice remained calm, clinical, even as the Kravish soldier advanced toward him. They made one mistake though. They let me get this message out. The alien fired. Pain exploded through Marcus's chest, and he collapsed against his equipment. Blood spread across his shirt, but his hand still gripped the microphone. Tell my daughter, tell Sarah I love her, Marcus whispered, his voice fading. And tell Earth, tell them to make these bastards pay. The transmission ended. 97 light-years away, in the Terran Defense Command Center buried beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Sarah Webb stood frozen at her console. She'd been reviewing supply reports when her father's voice had suddenly filled the command center. Now, tears streamed down her face as she stared at the silent speaker. Ma'am, her aide asked quietly. Are you? Sound General Alert, Sarah said, her voice like ice. I want the 3rd, 7th, and 9th fleets mobilized within the hour. Every ship we have that can make the jump to New Providence, I want them ready to go. Admiral, that's over half our military capacity. If we strip Earth's defenses. Did I stutter, Lieutenant? Sarah's eyes blazed. My father just died buying us intelligence on an enemy that thinks they can attack human colonies without consequence. We're going to show them what happens when you make that mistake. The aide saluted and rushed to execute her orders. Sarah turned back to her console, pulling up everything they had on New Providence's location. 97 light years. With their fastest ships, they could be there in 3 weeks. 3 weeks too late to save anyone. But not too late for justice. Computer, Sarah said quietly. Begin recording. Classification level Alpha Black. Authorization Web 773. The computer beeped its acknowledgement. To whoever finds this recording after what I'm about to do, Sarah began, her voice steady now, purpose replacing grief. Humanity has a rule. We don't start fights. We don't seek out conflict. We explore, we build, we try to make friends among the stars. She paused, pulling up images of New Providence, children playing in schools, families at harvest festivals, her father tending his garden. But we have another rule, just as important. When someone comes for us, when someone tries to exterminate us like we're nothing more than animals to be processed. Sarah's hands clenched into fists. We don't stop. We don't forgive. We don't forget. And we don't let it happen twice. The fleet began to mobilize. And the Kravish Empire, celebrating their easy victory over New Providence, had no idea that they'd just signed their own death warrant. The reckoning. The Kravish processing facility on New Providence hummed with efficiency. Commander Zekthor walked through the containment areas where thousands of human survivors huddled in cramped cells, awaiting transport to labor camps across the Empire. The conquest had gone perfectly. Not a single Kravish casualty. The humans had barely resisted at all. Commander, his second-in-command approached, antennae twitching nervously. We've detected an anomaly in the outer system. Multiple hyperspace signatures emerging near the 6th planet. Zekthor barely glanced up from his datapad. Probably debris from our jump. The gravitational wake sometimes creates false readings. Ignore it. Sir, the signatures are increasing. Now reading 47 distinct. I said ignore it, Zekthor snapped. Focus on loading the next transport. I want to be off this miserable rock within 2 cycles. But 15 minutes later, alarms began screaming throughout the facility. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace like the fist of an angry god. 73 warships, the largest military force Earth had ever assembled in a single location, materialized in perfect formation around New Providence. At their head flew the dreadnought Righteous Fury, its hull painted with the names of every colonist who had died in the initial attack. Admiral Sarah Webb stood on her bridge, eyes locked on the planet where her father had spent his final moments. Around her, tactical displays showed the Kravish fleet scrambling to respond, their ships breaking orbit in confusion. Open a channel, Sarah ordered. All frequencies. I want every Kravish in this system to hear this. The communications officer nodded. Channel open, Admiral. Sarah's voice rang out across the void, translated into every known language by the ship's computers. This is Admiral Sarah Webb of the Terran Defense Force. 3 weeks ago, you attacked a peaceful human colony. You murdered 40,000 civilians, including my father. You made the mistake of thinking we were weak. That we were alone. That no one would come for you. On the surface, Zekthor's blood ran cold as he listened. How had they arrived so quickly? The nearest human military installation was supposed to be months away. You were wrong, Sarah continued, her voice dropping to something colder than the vacuum of space. We are not weak. We are not alone. And we always come for our own. All ships, Sarah commanded her fleet. Execute Protocol Hammerfall. The human warships moved with practiced precision. They didn't target the Kravish vessels randomly. They'd spent 3 weeks analyzing every scrap of data from Marcus Webb's final transmission, studying Kravish ship designs from their database, running simulations. They knew exactly where to strike. The first volley of railgun fire tore through the Kravish formation like paper. Tungsten rounds, accelerated to a fraction of light speed, punched through shields that were designed to deflect energy weapons but useless against kinetic projectiles. 6 Kravish cruisers exploded in the first 10 seconds. Return fire. Zekthor screamed into his communicator. All ships, return fire. The Kravish energy weapons lanced out, brilliant beams of contained plasma that should have vaporized the human ships. Should have. But the human vessels were moving, their courses plotted by quantum computers that predicted Kravish firing solutions 3 moves in advance. The beams scorched empty space where human ships had been microseconds before. And the humans kept firing. Another salvo. 12 more Kravish ships turned into expanding clouds of debris. The Kravish had superior energy weapons, yes. More advanced shielding, yes. But humans had something the Kravish had never encountered, 300 years of experience fighting wars against their own kind. Humans knew violence. They'd perfected it against themselves long before they reached the stars. They're not just attacking randomly, Zekthor's tactical officer reported, mandibles clicking in terror. They're targeting our command ships first, then our carriers, then our support vessels. They know our fleet composition. They know our tactics. How? Zekthor demanded. How could they possibly? The answer hit him like a physical blow. The old human in the basement. The one who'd kept transmitting even as he died. He hadn't just sent a distress call. He'd sent intelligence. Ship counts. Formations. Everything. One dying human had doomed them all. Retreat. Zekthor ordered. All ships, emergency jump. Get us out of. The Righteous Fury's main cannon spoke. A beam of concentrated particles, drawing power from the ship's entire reactor core, lanced across space and struck Zekthor's flagship directly amidships. The Kravish dreadnought split in half, atmosphere and crew venting into the void. Zekthor found himself floating in space, his emergency suit the only thing keeping him alive. Around him, his fleet was dying. The humans weren't just defeating them. They were annihilating them. Ship after ship exploded, and the few vessels that tried to jump to hyperspace found their engines disabled by precise railgun strikes before they could escape. Sarah watched it all from her bridge, her face carved from stone. Status report. 70% of enemy fleet destroyed, Admiral. The remaining vessels are attempting to surrender. Denied, Sarah said flatly. No prisoners. No mercy. They chose this when they came to New Providence. Ma'am, her XO said carefully, the Articles of War require US to accept surrender if. The Articles of War apply to civilized opponents, Sarah interrupted. These things slaughtered 40,000 civilians. They don't get to surrender. They don't get to go home. They die here, in the same system where they murdered my father. The XO swallowed hard but nodded. Admiral. Continuing engagement. The Battle of New Providence lasted 47 minutes. When it ended, 200 Kravish warships had been reduced to wreckage. Not a single vessel escaped. The human fleet had lost 3 ships, with minor damage to a dozen others. But Sarah wasn't finished. Ground forces, she ordered. Deploy to the surface. I want every Kravish soldier in that processing facility eliminated. Then I want our people found. Every survivor gets medical attention, food, and transport off this rock. And the facility itself, Admiral. Sarah's eyes were hollow. Burn it. Burn it all. I want nothing left of their occupation except ashes and memories. As drop ships began their descent, Sarah walked to the observation deck. Below, New Providence turned slowly in the darkness, its scars from the Kravish attack still visible from orbit. Somewhere down there was her father's house. His garden. The basement where he died, making sure Earth knew what happened. "We came, Dad," she whispered to the glass. "Just like you knew we would." In the processing facility, the Kravish soldiers felt the building shake as human marines breached the outer walls. They'd heard the battle in orbit. They knew their fleet was gone. Some tried to fight. Some tried to surrender. It didn't matter. The humans had come for blood, and blood was what they would have. By dawn, it was over. The facility was rubble, every Kravish soldier dead, and human survivors were being loaded onto medical transports. Sarah stood in the ruins, looking at the crater where her father's house had been. A Marine approached, saluting. "Admiral, we found something in the debris. We think you should see it." He handed her a metal box, scorched but intact. Inside was her father's personal log, his journals, and a letter addressed to her. Sarah's hands shook as she opened it. "Sarah," it read in her father's careful handwriting. "If you're reading this, I'm gone. Don't grieve too long. I lived a full life, and I died doing what I always did, protecting my people. Make them pay, sweetheart. Make them remember that humans don't forgive. Don't forget. And don't ever stop coming for our own. Love always, Dad." Sarah folded the letter carefully and placed it against her heart. The Kravish Empire was about to learn a hard lesson. The message. The Kravish Imperial Council convened an emergency session aboard their homeworld of Kresh Prime, a massive planet orbiting twin suns at the heart of their empire. 12 high commanders sat in a circular chamber, their exoskeletons gleaming under bioluminescent lights. They'd ruled 300 conquered worlds for generations. Nothing had ever challenged their supremacy. Until now. The entire New Providence fleet, High Commander Thexlar announced, his voice carrying the weight of disbelief. 200 ships. Gone. Not defeated. Annihilated. And these, humans, they didn't even attempt to capture our soldiers. They killed every single one. The chamber buzzed with agitated clicking as the council processed this information. The Kravish had conquered through overwhelming force and efficient brutality. Species that resisted were enslaved. Species that submitted were permitted to exist under Kravish rule. It was simple. It had always worked. It was one colony, another commander argued. Surely we can assemble a larger fleet. Teach these humans their place before they become a real problem. You don't understand, Thexlar interrupted. I've reviewed every second of the battle recordings from the emergency beacons. The humans didn't win through superior numbers or technology. They won through pure, calculated violence. They studied us. They knew exactly where to hit us. They predicted our every move. And when we tried to surrender. He paused, mandibles trembling. They refused. They hunted down every ship that tried to escape. This wasn't a battle. It was an execution. Before the council could respond, their communications array lit up with an incoming transmission. A human transmission. Broadband. Powerful enough to reach every Kravish facility within 50 light years. Admiral Sarah Webb's face appeared on their screens. Kravish Imperial Council, Sarah began, her voice calm but carrying an undercurrent of barely restrained fury. My name is Admiral Sarah Webb. 3 weeks ago, your forces attacked a human colony called New Providence. You murdered 40,000 people, including my father. Today, I want to show you what we did in response. The feed switched to battle footage. The council watched in horror as their fleet was systematically torn apart. The precision was terrifying. Every human shot hit exactly where it needed to. Every maneuver was perfectly timed. The humans fought like they'd been studying warfare for millennia, refining it, perfecting it. You've conquered 300 worlds, Sarah's voice continued over the footage. You did it because you were stronger, more advanced, more ruthless than the species you encountered. But you made a mistake when you came for us. The footage switched to the ground assault. Kravish soldiers falling. The processing facility burning. Human marines moving through the wreckage with cold efficiency. You assumed we were like the others. You assumed we'd break. Surrender. Accept our place in your empire. Sarah's face returned to the screen, and her eyes were ice. We don't break. We don't surrender. And we sure as hell don't accept anything from murderers who slaughter civilians. High Commander Thexlar felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: fear. Here's what's going to happen next, Sarah continued. You're going to withdraw from every world within 100 light-years of human space. You're going to release every slave, every prisoner, every being you've ever conquered in that region. You have 30 days. The council chamber erupted in outraged clicking. Withdraw. Release their slaves. Impossible. Unthinkable. And if we refuse? Thexlar found himself asking the screen, even though it was just a recording. As if she'd anticipated the question, Sarah smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. If you refuse, we'll do to your homeworld what we did to your fleet at New Providence. But first, we'll visit every Kravish colony. Every outpost. Every station. And we'll leave the same message we're leaving today. The feed switched one final time. It showed a Kravish battle standard, captured from Zekthor's flagship, now mounted on a pole outside the ruins of the processing facility. Beneath it, burned into the ground in letters 50 feet tall, were words in both human and Kravish script. Humanity remembers. Humanity responds. Humanity never stops. We've already sent copies of this transmission to every species in the known galaxy, Sarah said. We want everyone to know what happens when you attack human civilians. We want the universe to understand that we're not conquerors. We don't want your worlds or your resources. But touch our people, and we become your worst nightmare. The transmission ended. The council sat in stunned silence. Finally, one of the younger commanders spoke up. This is a bluff. One colony, one fleet. They cannot possibly challenge our entire empire. Thexlar pulled up intelligence reports that had been coming in over the past week. His antennae drooped as he read them. Our scouts report that the humans are mobilizing. Not just their military. Their entire civilization. They're converting civilian shipyards to military production. Conscripting volunteers by the millions. One of our intelligence officers managed to intercept a human broadcast before being detected and killed. He played the audio. A human news anchor's voice filled the chamber. In response to the New Providence massacre, Earth's government has declared a state of total war readiness. Every able-bodied citizen is being offered military training. Factory workers are volunteering for double shifts to produce ships and weapons. As one soldier said, they killed our people. They think we'll just accept it. They're about to learn what humanity does to genocidal monsters. Another commander shifted uncomfortably. How many humans are there? 47 billion across 12 worlds and hundreds of stations, Thexlar said quietly. And according to our xenopsychology experts, they have something we don't. They call it spite. The ability to sacrifice everything, to burn their own resources to ash, just to ensure their enemy suffers. They'll bankrupt themselves, starve themselves, die by the billions, as long as it means we die too. The council chamber fell silent again. There's more, Thexlar added. I've been studying human history. They're unique among spacefaring species. Do you know why? No one answered. Because they almost destroyed themselves before they reached the stars. Nuclear weapons. Biological warfare. Chemical attacks. For centuries, they waged war against themselves with weapons designed specifically to maximize suffering. They know how to kill. They've spent longer perfecting warfare than we've spent building our empire. And now. He paused. Now we've given them a target that isn't themselves. One of the commanders made a dismissive gesture. Surely you're not suggesting we actually comply with their demands? We are the Kravish Empire. We don't negotiate with prey species. Then what do you suggest? Thexlar asked. Total war against an enemy that outnumbers us 40-1. An enemy that has already demonstrated they can destroy our fleets. An enemy that refuses to surrender or negotiate, that will fight until every last one of them is dead, just to take us with them. No one had an answer. I'll tell you what I learned from studying these humans, Thexlar said softly. They have a saying, don't start a fight with someone who has nothing left to lose. We killed 40,000 of their people. We made them angry. But more importantly, we made them unified. Every human in the galaxy now has a single purpose: make us pay. He pulled up a star chart showing Kravish territory. We have 30 days to withdraw from this region. I suggest we do it. Because if we don't, these humans won't just defeat us. They'll make an example of us. They'll ensure that every species in the galaxy knows what happens when you commit genocide against humanity. The vote was close. But in the end, survival won over pride. 28 days later, the Kravish began their withdrawal. Colonies were abandoned. Slaves were freed. Territory that had taken decades to conquer was surrendered without a shot fired. Admiral Sarah Webb watched from the Righteous Fury as the last Kravish ship left the designated zone. Around her, her crew celebrated. But Sarah felt hollow. Victory didn't bring her father back. It didn't undo the massacre. Admiral, her XO approached. Message from Earth Command. They're asking what our next move should be. Sarah looked out at the stars, thinking of all the species the Kravish had enslaved over the centuries. Thinking of all the empires out there that might see humanity as prey. Send a message to the fleet, Sarah said. We're not going home yet. We're going to visit every world the Kravish just abandoned. We're going to help them rebuild. Show them that humans don't just fight. We also protect. And after that? Sarah's expression hardened. After that, we make sure the entire galaxy knows the lesson the Kravish just learned. Humanity doesn't start fights. But we always finish them. The message spread across the stars. Species that had never heard of humans suddenly knew their name. And they knew what humans did to those who attacked the innocent. The galaxy had a new rule: don't touch humanity's people. Because humanity doesn't forgive. Humanity doesn't forget. And humanity never, ever stops coming.